Live everywhere on netrootsradio.com. David Waldman, Kagro, in the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? Hey, okay, well, I've made it to my seat in time. Barely in time to get the show started. It is Friday, October 6th, 2023. Clearly time for another show. Not that I was ready for it, but that's Friday for you. So, thumbs up from Justice. That's good news. We have much to catch up on, of course. And by that, I mean, we don't know what the hell we're going to do. Well, you know, there's news, and then there's other stuff that I thought was interesting that doesn't necessarily qualify as news anymore, but nonetheless worth sharing. Friday, often the time that we do such things. And I don't know, will today be an exception? I was going to say today is no such exception, but hey, we have no idea whether it's going to end up being an exception or not. What about the NAFTA calendar? Can you turn to for inspiration? No, nothing really there, although very often I'll check on Mastodon to see whether it is the case that John Shiflett has some idea about what we might be celebrating this morning. Yeah, look at that. He's always got an eye on something going on somewhere, so we'll see what he's got. But it's not a national or international day of celebration, as far as I can tell. For all intents and purposes here at KITM headquarters, however, I don't think this is national or international or even happening in any other household, but as far as we're concerned, because we'll be doing it in 100% of households here, it is National Change the Brita Filter Day. I don't know if they have that where you are, but it seems like they do it every couple of months. And, if you're in compliance with the regulatory regime. So happy Freshwater Day tomorrow. I guess today is the worst possible water quality, I suppose. Unless, of course, you skipped last National Change the Brita Water Filter Day. So things may vary in your home. But what's he got on tap for me here today? John Shiflett sends us something with a KITM hashtag. Vaccine scientist warns anti-science conspiracies have become a deadly organized movement. I mean, okay, I'll buy that. This by Tanya Lewis in Scientific American, and a link and a quote. People call the anti-science movement misinformation or the infodemic, as though it's just random junk out there on the internet or social media, and it's not. It's organized, it's well-financed, I didn't know that, and politically motivated. That I understood to be the case. And I guess anytime there's something politically motivated, the chances are it's also well-financed. So, wow, okay. Didn't expect to see this coming in the morning, but I'll take your suggestion and take a look. Oh, look, there's a Nobel Prize sale going on at Scientific American. Save 40%. I never knew you could never buy a Nobel Prize so cheaply as you can now. 40% off all Nobel Prizes. Please come to scientificamerican.com. I imagine it's actually a sale of Scientific American subscriptions in honor of the Nobel Prizes. And I think the person who came up with this prize should win the Nobel Prize for economics, if it works. All right. Well, Maybe this is something to do today. Well, I'll keep the tab open. I do feel like we have to pick up on the day's news. As you know, the Speaker's office over at ye olde House of Representatives is now vacant, and a race is on to find a successor to Kevin McCarthy. The word is out and has been for a day or so that he is not going to seek re-election as Speaker. I thought that he might actually give that a shot, because why not? It's never been done before, and so neither has this. And so maybe it really would be a thumb in the eye of everybody to get yourself re-elected Speaker the next day. I actually, I don't know if how I would feel about that. It would be a hell of a play, to say the least. And I guess it wouldn't be any worse than it was before. And the big worry now is, well, it will be worse because somebody else will be Speaker, and that other person will be worse than Kevin McCarthy. In the sense that they'll have, let's say, more motivation to own the libs as policy, and perhaps even more ability to get that done. But I don't know. I don't know how much worse it's going to get. And in terms of being effective, maybe everybody is worse than Kevin McCarthy. Maybe everybody's better. I really don't know. He was ineffective. We just don't know very much about anybody else and how effective they'll be in this job. Anyway, as it turns out, to no one's surprise, I mean, I think this would be the default guesses of most people in terms of who would become leading candidates to replace McCarthy. One would be the next highest ranking Republican leader, Steve Scalise. Many reasons to believe that he won't be able to get across the finish line and win the job. One of which is that the other leading candidate is Jim Jordan, who has set himself up to be the end-all, be-all of congressional Republican representation. As you know, when Kevin McCarthy was both as minority leader and as speaker, basically, anytime Jim Jordan saw an opportunity to be the star of some ruckus somewhere, he made Kevin McCarthy appoint him to be the chief ruckus maker. So he's now sitting as chair of the Judiciary Committee. I was thinking this morning, it might not be overall a bad thing. I mean, Republicans are going to choose the speaker. We can't really fix that. I know there's been some ideas floated. Oh, couldn't we could float a compromise candidate and promise a whole bunch or even all of the Democratic votes to entice the moderate wing, if there ever really was one, and certainly doesn't seem like there is one now. But the so-called moderate wing of the Republicans could be convinced that, throw a couple of votes this way, with all Democratic votes, and just like with the vacating the Speaker's office with Matt Gaetz, 6 or 7 Republicans would be all it would take. But that would then require all Democrats to do that thing that they shockingly reminded everybody they won't do, vote for Republicans for Speaker. But we'll get a good one from the Problem Solvers Caucus. There's just not going to be a way to get the I don't think a way to get the Democratic caucus united behind a Republican candidate for Speaker in with this universe of Republicans to choose from. Of course, you don't have to be a member of the House to be Speaker, but, anyway, the only candidate in that category to get any traction was Donald Trump. And he now, by the way, says, I'm out. He doesn't say he's out, but he's saying I'm endorsing someone else instead. He's endorsed his announcement, his complete and total support and an endorsement for Jim Jordan. Not terribly surprising in choosing as between those two. And many reasons for it, probably, but I don't know if it matters to parse through what they might be or whether even Trump knows what they might be. So there's a little point in our doing it. But he's going to back Jim Jordan in all of this. That does not mean that Murdery Trader Green won't nominate him in their conference meeting. There may even be significant support for making Trump Speaker. But I don't think it goes anywhere without, say, Matt Gaetz, who's the sort of the man of the moment. If he's not going to say, yeah, this was all about vacating the office and making room for Trump to be Speaker, and he's not demanding that. And it sounds like he'll be very happy to line up behind one or another of the ordinary consensus type candidates, that is to say, Scalise or Jordan. I don't know where he goes as between the two. My guess is he gravitates a little bit more towards the Jim Jordan style than the Steve Scalise style, if there even is a style to be described. But he has said as much that he essentially would be happy to have contributed to an atmosphere in which either one of those two ends up being the next speaker. He's glad and proud of himself for dragging the conference to the right in selecting their leadership, and is pretty sure that's where they will land. And all indications are that that's the case. Making Donald Trump Speaker might just complicate their lives a little more than they want. But even if Murdery Trader Green loses in the conference meeting, that doesn't mean she can't still shout out Donald Trump's name during a floor vote for Speaker. And she may yet do that. I guess if she has any brains in her head, I don't know what the answer to that is. She may want to check in first and see that, for instance, it's not a dead tie between Jordan and Scalise, such that her, idiotic vote for Donald Trump screws things up and causes there to be, more balloting, etc. But I don't know how she'll be able to know that. They can't get an accurate whip count of anything over there. But I guess if word comes out that Jordan has the overwhelming majority and Scalise will put up a nice fight and make a good appearance, but lose by 20 to 30 votes or something like that, convincingly, both in the conference, although it can't be that way on the floor. So if the conference decides, all right, we're going to endorse, our decision is Jordan will be our nominee. And I don't know whether at that point Scalise releases everybody. He probably would. It would be pointless not to. And in exchange, he'd probably be allowed to keep his majority leader post. And I mean, he's in it. He's been elected. That hasn't been vacated. So he's still majority leader tomorrow, and the next day and the next day, no matter what they do with the speakership, unless they make him speaker or he resigns, it doesn't clear out the slate. Though I guess that's something they could do in the conference. They could vote to vacate all of their leadership positions and start over, but no indication that that's happening at the moment. So I assume at that point, if the decision is made in the conference to back Jordan, that Scalise sort of steps out of the way and just remains majority leader and no worse off than he was before. He's got a lot on his mind, a lot on his plate, and maybe even has a plate on his mind. That could be. Who knows? Anyway, I don't think it disrupts things terribly there for Jordan to take over. And then if that's the decision of the conference, that still doesn't prevent Murdery Trader Green from shouting out Donald Trump's name on the floor, maybe as an indication that, one, loyalty, two, just to show people that it can be done, three, she's a child, and four, she's probably a little bit jealous of Jordan and, wonders why couldn't it be me? I never put myself forward because there's Donald Trump before me. But if it's not going to be Donald Trump, why not let it be me? And I don't know. She may be a little bit wary of losing control of her faction, which I think she's done by backing Kevin McCarthy the first time and then standing by him in this vote and distancing herself from the Freedom Caucus and Matt Gaetz's wing and et cetera, et cetera. And she used to do, Gaetz used to be her little buddy sidekick in their weird mini tour of MAGA events around the country raising money. And then they sort of drifted apart. But they drifted apart when it looked like Murdery Trader Green was ascendant because she was joining forces with McCarthy and he was going to end up being the speaker. And now she's risen to this next level, but Gaetz has leapfrogged her and surpassed her in his influence and fundraising prowess, I think, probably also, and just being the hot Republican lunatic of the moment, more so than she has. So, there's some rivalries emerging there as well, and they'll be interesting to watch. Anyway, so I think that's what's going to go down. Trump kind of gets out of the way, endorses Jim Jordan instead. By the way, yes, Jim Jordan, just in case it occurred to you and you wanted to see it acknowledged, Jim Jordan himself out of compliance most of the time with the House's dress code. So there's going to be a dress code controversy. Well, there won't be because there's no Democrats involved. And it is, there is some qualitative and quantitative difference between wearing no jacket, but a tie nonetheless, and all business attire, whatever that might mean, minus the jacket for whatever reason. He hates jackets, and sweat shorts and a hoodie. There is a difference, and but there will be no dress code discourse about Jim Jordan, the Speaker of the House, needing his own tweaking of the dress code to accommodate his personal preferences. But anyway, just thought we'd throw that one out there. The bigger story of the day than all of this, and I'm only getting this to this now at this point, and this could have been right up at the top, along with the whatever national day we are watching for. Oh, and yes, thank you to Mighty OCD reminding us that tomorrow is the worst water day, Eastern Orthodox Brita Filter Day. And by the way, tomorrow will be worse because I almost never have actually achieved Brita filter changeosity on the appointed day, because it's a big pain in the butt, and it really isn't. I mean, it used to be way back in the old ancient days of Brita, where you had to soak the filter for 15 minutes submerged in cold water before you could even put it in your pitcher, and even then you would have to throw out the first 3 pitchers of water. And now I've never really trusted this. I don't know what they did to Brita filters several years now. I mean, but now you only have to rinse it under running cold water for like 15 seconds before you put it in the thing and then run through and then throw out the first 3 buckets or pitchers of water. Although, don't throw them out. I think you can water the plants with them safely. So reuse that water. It's a shame that we do that. Anyway, I since they changed it over to just rinsing it for 15 seconds, it's a snap. But, I like to make sure that also we empty out the pitcher. And I've got one of those things in the that takes up room in the fridge. It's a big reservoir that stays in there, and you tap the water out a little bit at a time, rather than using the pitcher. And I like to make sure that, okay, it's changeover day. You want to empty it out, clean it out, wash the thing, let it dry. And then, so, it's a production. And so it rarely happens. So maybe more Eastern Orthodox things. Anyway, okay, so that's a good question. And now we have Mighty OCD obsessing about it as well. And that's what the O is. So par for the course. What was that about? What was in those things? Some sort of nuclear reactor that needed to be started with 15 minutes worth of water soaking, and now really you changed to 15 seconds? I don't know if I trust that. Well, trust no one. But anyway, there's other things to pay attention to. For instance, the former guy, he always makes the show. You know how it goes. Donald J. Trump. Why did you gong America? We might ask, if you remember the old Gong Show. Why are you such a genuine electric chair level traitor? There's just no stopping this guy. Every day, more and more revelations that essentially he's getting closer and closer to the, doing the ultimate treason, for which everybody would otherwise, if it all happened at once, you would say, that's it. I mean, we just have to, at minimum, just strip him of everything, throw him in jail for the rest of his life, let him die there. If we're being MAGA traditionalist, back when America was great, we used to electrocute these people. So we should be doing this with Donald Trump. But he tests every limit, and also it used to be hypothetical. Well, what if you found out that Trump was so incompetent and such a blowhard and had such a big mouth that he was just blurting out critical national security information to people to brag to them at Mar-a-Lago? Well, I mean, he was already doing that anyway. But what if he did it again and it reminded you that you had forgotten the 4 or 5 times that you had previously caught him doing that? Well, he's obliged you. And we have this news about it. I don't know. Who do you want to read about it? Actual news reporters, or you want to read Hunter discussing it on the front page of Daily Kos? Well, the news angle on it is Trump allegedly discussed U.S. nuclear subs with foreign national after leaving White House, according to sources. So he waited until later to blurt out apparently to like an Australian businessman guy. Why is the Australian businessman guy at Pervalago? Maybe he's a pervert. He wants to be at Pervalago. I don't know what drew him there. He's a billionaire. Billionaires go to play at Donald Trump's house. It doesn't sound like he was in the business of espionage, although that would be a great place to be. You know, honey, I have to make another work trip to Mar-a-Lago because I'm a spy, and that's what we do. We go to Mar-a-Lago and wait for Donald Trump to blurt out some national security information. So for some reason, he discusses this with an Australian billionaire, which, in the first instance is, I guess, better than sharing it with a Chinese billionaire, maybe. But you shouldn't be sharing it with anybody because you never know. What are the interests of a foreign national? What are the interests of a foreign national billionaire? You can't figure. Billionaires are hard to figure. Doesn't really matter what country they're from. They're from their own country once you're a billionaire. So let's see. I have the ABC News report on it. Catherine Faulders, Alexander Malin, and Mike Levine, if I've got all the pronunciations right. Here's the story. Months after leaving the White House, former President Donald Trump allegedly discussed potentially sensitive information. Potentially. It's pretty potential. That discussed the information about U.S. nuclear submarines with a member of his Pervalago sex dungeon club, an Australian billionaire who then allegedly shared the information with scores of others, including more than a dozen foreign officials, womp womp, several of his own employees, and a handful of journalists, according to sources familiar with the matter. The potential disclosure was reported to Special Counsel Jack Smith's team as they investigated Trump's alleged hoarding of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. The sources told ABC News, have you forgotten that Jack Smith was prosecuting the hoarding of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, and way back when we found out about it, way back before even Jack Smith was appointed, when we first found out that he was keeping these classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, everybody immediately said, oh my God, what if he's just blathering about these contents of these documents to Mar-a-Lago members and just handing out classified national security secrets like candy to people? What are we going to do? Well, we can't prove that that's the case. It's bad. It's still against the law for him to even have the documents. That's bad enough. We don't have to show that he shared them with anybody. We don't have to. Well, anyway, they're prosecuting him for keeping the documents. They, in fact, don't have to show that he shared them with anybody. But as a special bonus, we're finding out that, all the worst case scenarios that you thought, you were dreaming up. Like he's so bad, he probably did this. And others say, no, come on. You're worrying about things that haven't even happened yet. Well, you were right. He is, in fact, telling random people at the Mar-a-Lago club nuclear secrets. Okay? So that's nice. Let's see. Where were we? Oh, yes. Where the information could shed further light on Trump's handling of sensitive government secrets. It is, in fact, information on Trump's handling of sensitive government secrets. He's doing very poorly with it. Prosecutors and FBI agents have at least twice this year interviewed the Mar-a-Lago member, Anthony Pratt, who runs U.S.-based Pratt Industries, despite being Australian, one of the world's largest packaging companies. And I don't know. I guess that means they make cardboard boxes, which is probably the reason he's at. That's another reason for him to be at Mar-a-Lago. Not only am I a spy, and that's where I go to collect information, but it is the cardboard box sales capital of the world. Now, does he pay, do you think, Trump for his cardboard boxes? Not the ones he got. He stole those from the government. But was he looking for free ones from Pratt? In those interviews, Pratt described how, looking to make conversation with Trump during a meeting at Mar-a-Lago in April 2021, he brought up the American submarine fleet, because that's casual conversation for non-spies, which the two had discussed before, the sources told ABC News. According to Pratt's account, as described by the sources, Pratt told Trump he believed Australia should start buying its submarines from the United States, to which an excited Trump leaning toward Pratt as if to be discreet, as though he knew how to act like he was being discreet, then told Pratt 2 pieces of information about U.S. submarines. You want to buy some submarines? Great. I'll tell you how awesome they are. They get great gas mileage. And also, here's the exact number of nuclear warheads that they routinely carry, and exactly how close they supposedly can get to a Russian submarine without being detected. Not that Donald Trump would order an American submarine to get near a Russian one, but if he wanted to, he totally could. You could get closer to them 2 weeks. In 2 weeks or some very short period of time, that number will change. So, why does he tell Australians that? The Australians were, in fact, looking to buy submarines. I remember that there was a story about the Trump administration trying to engineer things to pressure the Australian government into canceling its contracts to buy someone else's submarines and buy ours instead, which was a fantastic reminder that Australia has submarines. Oh, my God. I don't think that's a problem or anything. They're ostensibly allied with us, and, they're like a major nation and a sea power, etc. But you forget about these things. Like, I thought they had kangaroos and boomerangs and very little else. Sorry, Australians, but as it turns out, nuclear submarines. Well, good on you, mates, I guess, for buying nuclear submarines. You should buy more of them from us because they can get super close to Russian submarines, and this is how many nuclear warheads they routinely carry. What a jerk. I mean, anyway, so that's what he does. He leans in and tells them they can get so close, and they have 35, I don't know what the number is, nuclear warheads on them. In emails and conversations after the meeting with Trump, Pratt described Trump's remarks to at least 45 others, and why not? He's the 45th president, including 6 journalists, 11 of his company's employees, 10 ladies dancing, 9 maids a-milking, 7 swans a-swimming, 10 Australian officials, as it turns out, and 3 former Australian prime ministers. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I guess we got to continue with the major incident of espionage perpetrated by the former president of the United States, giving away nuclear secrets and submarine secrets. Like, how often do you have to change the Brita filter on an American nuclear submarine? And I guess all the important information, and revealing it to just anybody who would listen, of course. What the hell is wrong with you, you stupid idiot? Anyway, where do we leave off? Right, we were recounting how many people Pratt described Trump's remarks to. At least 45 others, journalists, employees of his company, Australian officials, former Australian prime ministers. They count as Australian. Well, I guess they're not current officials, so fine, sure, whatever. While Pratt told investigators he couldn't tell if what Trump said about U.S. submarines was real or just bluster, that's interesting. Investigators nevertheless asked Pratt not to repeat the numbers that Trump allegedly told him, suggesting the information could be too sensitive to relay further. It is unclear if the information was accurate because it came from Donald Trump. And I mean, he might have been giving it his best shot to be accurate. But again, he is, scrambled in the brain. So who knows whether he mixed up the numbers, forgot, made up numbers, or he could just have been bragging. They can get 5 inches away from a Soviet submarine. Soviet, sir? Yes, right. The, what do they call the Russia thing? And how many nuclear warheads? I guess it's Australian. How many nuclear warheads have they? Anyway. No attempt at the Australian accent today. I can't remember. Anyway, 350 billion nuclear warheads on it. Like, that information is probably wrong, but what's also good intelligence? I mean, it's different kind of intelligence, but foreign operatives would no doubt be very interested to know that the former president of the United States had no accurate image at all of the capabilities of United States nuclear submarines. It would be less exploitable now that he's not president. But of course, were he to become president again, it would be very interesting, I think, for these countries or any countries to know, one, that he might attempt to spill secrets at any time. So make sure you're following him around the Pervolago Club. And two, if you get into a conflict with the United States, you are at an advantage because the commander-in-chief will have no idea of the capabilities of his armed forces, and you might be able to use that to your tactical advantage. Anyway, unclear if the information was accurate, but it was investigated by Smith's team nonetheless. Sources said another witness, one of Trump's former employees at Mar-a-Lago, told investigators that within minutes of Pratt's meeting with Trump, he heard Pratt relaying to someone else some of what Trump had just said, which for Trump, of course, is the idea of saying things at the Mar-a-Lago Club. This guy will tell other people what an awesome guy I am by repeating this information. And it'll be the thrill of that guy's life to have heard secret information from me. He won't be able to stop telling everybody how knowledgeable I am. According to the sources, the former Mar-a-Lago employee also told investigators he was bothered and shocked to hear that the former president had provided such seemingly sensitive information to a non-U.S. citizen. Oh no, you work for a bad guy. Pratt told investigators Trump didn't show him any government documents during their April 2021 meeting, nor at any other time they crossed paths at Mar-a-Lago, the sources said. And that's because he was spilling secrets in line for the carving station, and he didn't want to go all the way to the bathroom to retrieve the documents. Besides, had he gone and retrieved the documents, it would have probably shown that he got all the numbers wrong. According to the sources, Pratt insisted to investigators that he told others about his meeting with Trump to show them how he was advocating for Australia, not being a spy. I'm advocating for Australia with the United States. Even though my business is in America, I'm still Australian, and I'm advocating for Australia by receiving sales pitches about submarines, I guess. Australia asked me to help them shop for a really good deal on nuclear submarines. Sure. Some of the Australian officials that sources said he told were, as reflected in news reports at the time, I didn't read it, but I guess they reported it in Australia. They were then involved in a then ongoing negotiation with the Biden administration over a deal for Australia to purchase a number of nuclear-powered attack submarines from the United States. The deal was ultimately secured earlier this year, with Australia agreeing to purchase at least 3 Virginia-class nuclear-powered submarines, though President Joe Biden has said that none of the submarines sold to Australia will be armed with nuclear weapons. So there. Special Counsel Smith did not include any information about Trump's alleged April 2021 conversation with Pratt in his June indictment against Trump, which charged the former president with 40 counts of unlawful retention of national defense information and obstruction-related offenses. But I don't know. I don't know whether they're going to do it now. We'll see. Last year, while needling the Biden administration for what he said was a weak response to Russia's war on Ukraine, Trump said he doesn't want any response, though. Anyway, Trump said that if he were still president, he would make sure Russia understood that the United States is, quote, a greater nuclear power with the greatest submarines in the world, even if they're all parked in Australia. They are the most powerful machines ever built, and nobody knows where they are. I mean, he's right in the sense that, the intention is, of course, to keep them on the move and, less predictable, less reliable, so that some portion of our nuclear arsenal is always on the move and not immediately necessarily trackable, identifiable, destroyable by whoever you might be fighting with or whatever. But that's some way of putting it. And nobody knows where they are. Well, we know where they are. But that's right up there on the level of, and maybe he really does think that nobody knows where they are, just as I'm beginning to believe I've been beginning to believe for the past 5 years that Trump really believes it when he says, for instance, that stealth aircraft are invisible like Wonder Woman's plane, right? You can't see it. Nobody knows where they are either. Anyway, shortly after Trump became president in 2017, if he ever became president, Pratt joined Mar-a-Lago as a member and publicly pledged to invest another $2 billion in American manufacturing jobs so that he could be around in case national security secrets were spilled. Over the next few years, Pratt visited Mar-a-Lago about 10 times, interacting with Trump on several occasions, once even having dinner with Trump and a U.S. senator at another Trump-owned property nearby, Pratt told investigators, according to sources. Pratt also visited the White House in 2018, when Trump was meeting with Australia's then Prime Minister, according to online records. In 2019, speaking at the opening of a Pratt Industries plant in, Ohio? Wapakoneta. Is that, I don't know. Wapakoneta. Wapakoneta? I don't know. Ohio. That's the important part. Trump called Pratt a friend and praised him for funding the plant. We're here to celebrate a great opening and a great gentleman, Trump said. What a wordsmith he is. Anthony is one of the most successful men in the world, perhaps Australia's most successful man, which he did very pointedly, I'm sure, to try and needle his other good friend / enemy, Rupert Murdoch. Standing beside Trump, Pratt then said he would not have invested in this plant if it wasn't for President Trump's election, which has given us incredible faith in investing in America. But in recent months, according to sources, Pratt told investigators that he now supports the current U.S. government because he's a businessman, describing himself as someone who tends to side just side with the king. Yeah, whoever can make me money. Fine, I understand that. Representatives for Pratt, that's the way it should be. I mean, for business guys, anyway. It's predictable. I like that. Representatives for Pratt did not respond to messages seeking comment from ABC News. A Trump spokesperson said that what ABC News was told through what the spokesperson called leaks lacks proper context and relevant information. President Trump did nothing wrong, has always insisted on truth and transparency and acted in a proper manner according to the law, the spokesperson said. They're lying, and that will be adjudicated in court. This, too, eventually will be adjudicated in court. And if it was anybody else, they'd be executed. But okay, we'll deal with that as it comes. That's in the news. There's no avoiding it. I had to tell you about that. Let's see. There were one or two other things that it reminded me of along the way, but we'll get to them. I don't know whether there's more to dig out about that particular story, although it reminded me of some other ones. All right. So we have some other things to share with you, some of which have been in pocket for a while, some of which are only emerging now. And, let's see what we can do to share with you, all these other various pieces of information. Perhaps you'll enjoy this one. Mike Lindell, the MyPillow guy, is maybe broke or just doing the Trump thing and not paying his lawyers. Although he's saying he's not paying his lawyers because he's burned up all his money in this stupid, futile effort to, quote unquote, prove that the election was stolen and Donald Trump has really been president this whole time, and yada yada. MyPillow lawyers say CEO Mike Lindell owes them millions of dollars, according to NBC News' reporting here. Attorneys representing Lindell and MyPillow in defamation suits filed by voting machine companies say he's fallen behind on his bills and needs to be dropped as a client. hey, if you can't afford legal representation in this country, hey, man, you're screwed. So here he is, looking like he's wearing an Edward suit here. Anyway, NBC News' reporting here is by Dara Gregorian, who says, writes, what have you. The attorneys defending Lindell and his business, just the one, against defamation claims from voting machine companies are seeking to sever ties with the MyPillow guy over millions of dollars in unpaid legal fees. They actually call him the MyPillow guy here in this article. I love it. In a court filing Thursday, the law firm of Parker Daniels Kibort, maybe Kibort, LLC, said Lindell and MyPillow are months behind on their legal bills in 3 defamation cases, and they can no longer afford to represent him. At this time, defendants are in arrears by millions of dollars to PDK, the filing said. PDK is a small litigation and trial firm in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and cannot afford to finance defendants' defense in the litigations. It's interesting. That's an interesting thing. And it's also interesting that, of course, naturally, no trial firm in Minneapolis, Minnesota could ever afford to finance defendants' defense in the litigations. I don't know why they threw that in there, but we're just a small town, aw shucks law firm. I'm sure they're quite wealthy, but okay. They're entitled to be paid, and good for them. Anyway, the firm said if it was forced to continue to provide legal services to Lindell, the future fees and costs will amount to millions of dollars in addition to the millions of dollars already owed. The firm has been defending Lindell in defamation lawsuits filed by voting machine companies Smartmatic and Dominion Voting Systems, as well as a third lawsuit brought by former Dominion employee Eric Coomer. I wasn't aware of this one. All 3 claim their reputations were damaged by Lindell's repeated fantastical claims of fraud around the 2020 presidential election. I'm sure they were. And in fact, Dominion's won already. So now you can be doubly sure that they were. Lindell on Thursday praised his lawyers as brave and courageous and said he would gladly keep paying them if he wasn't broke. We've lost everything, every dime, he told NBC News in a phone interview. All of it is gone. And I hope he's actually telling the truth this time, but I suspect he's still living in considerable luxury. So let's strip him of that and burn it to the ground. Lindell said his company had faced financial challenges amid the lawsuits and sustained bad publicity to the point that he can no longer take out any loans. They took away my borrowing because of all you guys in the media telling the truth about me, Lindell said, adding that he'd been canceled over his comments on the 2020 election. Asked if he planned to represent himself or hire new lawyers, Lindell said it was too soon to tell. This just happened today. I just immediately today went broke. In its filing, the law firm said Lindell and his company have been made fully aware of this filing, have been advised to obtain other counsel. Defendants have indicated that they understand PDK's position, do not object, and are in the process of finding new counsel. Good luck. In a March interview with Newsweek, Lindell said he'd been forced to borrow $10 million to pay for his legal fees. Yeah, he should have stopped. In April, an arbitration panel ordered Lindell to pay $5 million for losing his Prove Mike Wrong 2020 election challenge. I remember that one, in which participants were asked to find proof that his cyber data was not valid data from the November 2020 election, and as he'd contended it was. For the people who find the evidence, $5 million is their reward, the contest said. Well, software developer Robert Zeidman won the challenge, but Lindell refused to pay. Lindell is now challenging the arbitration panel's ruling. On Thursday, Lindell told NBC that despite the financial strains on him and his company, he plans to keep pushing his stolen election claims. I will never stop trying to secure our elections, he said. Lindell is not the only Trump ally facing an action on unpaid legal fees tied to false claims about that election. Last month, Rudy Giuliani's attorney, Robert Costello, and his firm sued the former New York City mayor for $1.4 million in unpaid fees. Giuliani, who's also being sued by Smartmatic, Dominion, and Coomer, has been found liable for defaming 2 Georgia election workers and is facing related criminal charges in Fulton County, where he's, of course, pleaded not guilty, but actually is guilty. Trump held a fundraiser in September, in support of Giuliani's legal defense fund. Giuliani's son, Andrew Giuliani, who worked in the Trump White House, touted the fundraiser in an interview on WABC Radio in the hours before the fundraiser, saying that while they had raised over $1 million for this event alone, it still won't be enough to get through this. And good. He should be bankrupt as well. That is exciting news. So is the Lindell news. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, but if you wanted it to happen to a nicer guy, but only slightly nicer, that would probably still be okay with me. All right. There's much more. Where to with this one? How about, this was make an interesting Friday read, from The Guardian, the article we happened on the other day when we were reading about, what the hell were we reading about? Something else from The Guardian. Maybe, oh yes, right, the Red Caesar idea, which, by the way, I noticed is, in the title of Greg's Friday, abbreviated pundit roundup. The abbreviated pundit roundup is Red Caesar and poisoning the blood of our country. Something that both he and Mark Sumner were addressing on the front page. The worsening turn of Trump's violent rhetoric, and more or less just echoing the fascist leadership of World War II era, Hitler, Mussolini, etc., poisoning the blood of our country. It's a terrible development. Also terrible coming at the time when the Anti-Defamation League is, for whatever reason, deciding to demonstrate its resolve in fighting the rise in anti-Semitic rhetoric online by announcing that it will continue to advertise on Twitter, which, leads me to regrettably file my resolution to declare the chair of the Anti-Defamation League vacant. And I guess I'll have to take over that one as well. So, lots going on with all of this. And so, right, a reference to the Red Caesar thing. But I wanted to double back and go back. Do you remember when I was reading you that article and they sort of casually dropped the information that the Red Caesar thing was being promoted by a guy who fancied himself a wannabe warlord? And I was like, what, are we doing that now? Or are we just, dropping all pretense and moving to warlordism? Maybe. Although, and by the way, I have another article that I could pull this one out, just something I happened across this morning, allegedly unrelated, but the fact that it invokes the word warlordism, for the United States was a bit of a shock. And I thought maybe I'll read that article, maybe at least for myself over the weekend. So, what's going on here? Who is this warlord? And can we read this thing from The Guardian? It's not ancient. It's from August, but it's not a current article. So August 22nd, 2023. Jason Wilson's piece in The Guardian. U.S. businessman is wannabe warlord of secretive far-right men's network. And gosh, that's scary all by itself. So let's see. The bolded brief up at the top here revealed Charles Haywood, creator of the Society for American Civic Renewal, has said he might serve, if nominated, I might serve, as warlord at the head of an armed patronage network. I think we ought to look into this just as a Friday service. The founder and sponsor of a far-right network of secretive men-only, invitation-only, fraternal lodges in the U.S. Like, I thought they were just, playing cards, pinochle, over at the Water Buffalo Lodge. What was the one that they used in Peggy Sue Got Married? I can't remember the name of their lodge. Anyway, men-only, invitation-only, fraternal lodges. Well, as it turns out, the founder and sponsor is a former industrialist who has frequently speculated about his future as a warlord after the collapse of America, or maybe precipitating the collapse of America, I guess. A Guardian investigation has found federal and state tax and company filings show that the Society for American Civic Renewal, SACR, I can't believe they passed up the chance of calling it SCAR, which just seems like a great Bond villain kind of a name. Well, the society and its creator, Charles Haywood, also have financial ties with the far-right Claremont Institute. We teased you with that the other day. SACR's most recent IRS filing names Haywood as the national organization's principal officer. Other filings identify 3 lodges in Idaho. 3 in Idaho alone. And maybe it is Idaho alone that has these lodges. 1 in Boise, 1 in Coeur d'Alene, and 1 in, how do they say it when they're in Idaho? Moscow? It's not Moscow, right? I don't remember. We did the pronunciation once. Anyway, Moscow? Anyway. And another in Dallas, Texas. If there's going to be one outside of Idaho, it would probably be in Texas. SACR's public-facing presence is confined to a slick one-page website, advertising the organization's goal as civilizational renaissance. I mean, that's a nice goal. And a society with strong leadership committed to family and culture. So, 2 good things. The site claims SACR is, quote, raising accountable leaders to help build thriving communities of free citizens who will rebuild the frontier-conquering spirit of America, which happens to suck at the moment. So, we're going to rebuild it better. I don't know. It condemns those who rule today, saying that they corrupt the sinews of America. Wow. Alienate men from family, community, and God, and promising to counter and conquer this poison. Huzzah! It also prominently features SACR's cross-like insignia, or mark, which it describes variously as symbolizing sword and shield. I could see how it would look like a sword, but not so much as a shield. And the rejection of modernist philosophies and heresies. Great. Finally, the site advises that SACR membership, quote, is organized primarily around local groups overseen by national superstructure and is by invitation only, offering an email address for those interested in learning more. The Guardian emailed the website contact address from a pseudonymous address, but received no response. No invitation for you. Heidi Berich, maybe, Beirich, is co-founder of the Global Project on Hate and Extremism. It's about watching hate and extremist groups, I assume, and not facilitating it. And she is, therefore, an expert on the far right. She characterized the rhetoric on the website as, palingenetic? Oh my God, I don't even know these words anymore. Palingenetic ultranationalism. Gigantic a-holism is really what it boils down to. But this is a technical term. Palingenetic ultranationalism. There's a link to Wikipedia. There's a whole thing, believe me, there's going to be way too much information about this on Wikipedia. By the way, it's a definition of true fascism proposed by political theorist Roger Griffin. The phrase was first coined by Griffin in his 1991 book, The Nature of Fascism, much easier to pronounce than this other, palingenetic. It's funny. It starts with the word Palin. Ha! You can't spell palingenetic ultranationalism without Palin, even though there's no chance in the world that she knows what this is about. Key element is the belief that fascism can be defined by what Griffin posits in his book to be the true core myth of fascism, namely that of the need for a counter-revolution to occur first, before a national rebirth or palingenesis could then take place. All right. I mean, it's fascism. Get it? All right. So anyway, there you go. But the political scientists have a special name for it, and this is it. So Heidi Berich characterized this rhetoric on the website as this palingenetic ultranationalism, a feature of fascism that proposes a revolution as a means of national rebirth. Yeah, that's what most revolutions see themselves as. Anyway, Haywood has become more active and prominent as a blogger and commentator on the far-right podcast circuit since selling his solely owned Indianapolis-based shampoo manufacturing company. How did people become ultra-billionaire right-wing wackos selling shampoo? I mean, we'd be a country of Amway dictators. If I don't understand how this happens. Do you know the shampoo company? Mansfield King. Never heard of it. Like, what kind of shampoos do they make that so many people are buying that this guy is a billionaire? All right, well, he sold it to a competitor for an undisclosed price in September of 2020, but I guess it was $1 billion because he's a billionaire now. On his personal website, The Worthy House, wow, where he styles himself Maximum Leader, Okay. Haywood has written that the sale made him rich beyond the dreams of avarice and looking to cause trouble. Rich beyond the dreams of avarice. I don't know if he knows what all these words mean. And looking to cause trouble. I certainly don't. Anyway, Mansfield King was reportedly on track to do $45 million in revenue in the year before its sale. So I guess you could, if you cost that out, I don't know, when you're valuing companies, you're like, well, how much money will it make each year? And some X number of years that you're purchasing you're buying the whole thing in perpetuity. So you got to give some sort of future valuation. I guess you could calculate that up to $1 billion. Anyway, he has featured on Claremont Institute podcasts like The American Mind, and shows run by Claremont Institute staffers and alumni like the New Founding Podcast. He has also written for Claremont's website, The American Mind. So they're using The American Mind, a podcast, it's a website. They got other podcasts, et cetera, et cetera. They got money to burn over there, I guess. Indiana company records show that Haywood incorporated SACR as a domestic nonprofit in Indiana on July 22nd, 2020, just ahead of the sale of his company. He was looking forward for something else to do. IRS records show that on SACR was approved. I don't know what this is supposed to mean, but a typo here. IRS records show that SACR was approved as a nonprofit fraternal organization with provision to create subsidiary lodges under Section 501c10 of the Internal Revenue Code. The organization's structure, aims, and apparent secrecy are striking in the light of some of the ideas Haywood has promoted in articles on the Worthy House website. And again, I'm not certain what Worthy House means. Is he saying I'm establishing the House of Haywood, and we're a worthy house, like the old feudal sort of designations. One idea he's repeatedly raised on the websites is that he might serve as a warlord. This is amazing. You know what I might do? You know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about picking up a new hobby. I might be a warlord. I might collect stamps. I might take up sailing. I might be a warlord. Okay. Well, that's an unusual goal and just an unusual thing to say out loud on a website, but he has said it. So he's thinking about becoming a warlord at the head of an armed patronage network, or APN. He's got a name, an acronym for it, defined as an organizing device in conditions where central authority is broken down, in which the warlord's responsibility is the short and long-term protection, military and otherwise, of those who recognize his authority and act in part at his behest. I mean, that's the textbook definition, I guess, of a warlord. I like that it's an APN. It's a multi-level marketing thing. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I'm trying to find out what Mansfield King actually makes, and this is interesting. I mean, so far, no easy answers in terms of you go and you Google the thing and it says, well, here are the products that they make. I'm going to have to do some more digging, but it's interesting here. Let's see. So Mansfield King, at the website Makers Row, whatever that might be, says that they are America's fastest growing contract manufacturer of personal care products. Powering, this is an interesting paragraph to have out here. Powering that growth is a not very original, but very well executed philosophy of customer service. Our focus is entirely on our customers' needs and the goals and objectives of their business. Wow. Okay. That's the way most people say what they say about that. We partner with our customers. Oh, do you? That's the sentence. We partner with our customers. I don't know where this comes from, though. If you want the lowest price for a commodity product that will have a crooked label and go into dollar stores, we are not the company for you. We offer end-to-end services from cutting-edge R&D through blending, packaging, and filling to logistics and warehousing. So what they're saying is, if you want to market your own line of shampoo and you don't want to start from scratch, you can hire a Mansfield King and say, I want it to smell like Australian submarines. I don't know. You can design your own product. They'll formulate it to your specifications, bottle it, label it, warehouse it, ship it to you, put it in the stores. I want to have a KITM shampoo, and it's going to smell like Australian submarines. If I pay them, they'll make the thing, and they'll make it look fancy. So there you go. And there was some indication that they are, I guess, a big manufacturer of ethnic hair care products, which I thought was interesting because they probably hate ethnics. But they're willing to take their money and make shampoo for them. But I'm just sort of wondering, and I guess maybe the reason it's so difficult to find out, well, what do they make? What does Mansfield make that this guy is a billionaire from shampoo? And it's not that he came up with a formula of shampoo that everyone loves and washes their hair with from sea to shining sea. It's that I have a shampoo manufacturing plant. And if you want to manufacture shampoo, but you don't feel like building a factory, call me and we'll make your stupid shampoo for you. All right. That's how he became a billionaire. I mean, it isn't very imaginative. That's true. But if it's well executed, I could see, all right, you've got some money. Now, what's interesting is that you say, I'm tired of making shampoo for people where they pay me money to put their labels on it. I want to be a warlord. I mean, it doesn't follow in any way. But then again, I want to run the world. I want everybody to bend to my will. I want to be a warlord. Maybe that occurs to a lot of people. It never occurred to me that it would be a shampoo manufacturer, nor did it occur to me the idea of, for instance, saying, I want to be a warlord. That has occurred to me. But I want to be a warlord, but I want to be, I'm thinking of franchising this warlordism. But I mean, I guess if you sit and think about it enough, it does follow naturally. I want to be a warlord. That's a highly localized kind of thing. Now, it could be a really successful warlord, run a very large swath of country, about, I don't know, let's say the size of Saudi Arabia, for instance. It's doable, right? But ultimately, it's fairly limited. Warlordism has, as one of its downsides, well, for one thing, there will be other warlords. And you know what you have to do with those guys. I mean, you don't get together at the Warlords Club and have drinks and talk about what successful warlords you are, generally speaking. You are warring with those other warlords. If you're lucky and you want to live a long time, you might get together for drinks, essentially, at the Warlords Club by saying, well, I'll be allied with you. I won't attack your feudal holdings and you don't attack mine, but you probably never really truly trust the other guy, so you're always on your guard, which I guess brings us to how this developed in the real world over the years was, well, I don't trust that guy. The only thing you can do to trust this guy better would be if you sort of intermarry with their family and then you have a familial connection to the successors. The next generation will have better reason to trust one another because they'll be cousins. And maybe that will lead to less, we'll have to worry less about what's going on our flanks, and we can worry about warlording with other people elsewhere to whom we can get ourselves married as well, until the blood is stretched so thin that cousins eventually do go to war with one another. Anyway, now we're to World War I. Okay. So, recreating world history here through shampoo, which I didn't think was going to happen. So, this is a guy who has a website who says he wants to be a warlord. And that's very interesting. And he's, like I said, he's going to make a multi-level marketing thing out of it. You can be part of my armed patronage network. If you want to be a warlord, and just like with my shampoo, you want to have a shampoo company, but you don't want to build a factory, I'll make the shampoo for you. Now you are a shampoo magnate, even though you don't make your own shampoo. You want to be a warlord? Well, I already am a warlord, but I can set you up with a warlord franchise. You can be a subsidiary warlord who pays tribute to me. You can open a lodge in Boise, Idaho, be the warlord of Boise, and I'll make sure you stay the warlord of Boise with my line of warlording products that you can buy from me. And I'll prop you up in Boise so long as you kick up, presumably, money, power, bullets, shampoo bottles, I don't know what, to me. Whatever I might demand. So you'll be part of my armed patronage network, my multi-level feudalist warlord startup. I want to be in at the ground floor of a startup. Shark Tank will fund me. The possibilities involving violence that APNs might face. This is great. I mean, this really is just franchising warlordism. It's straight up. The possibilities involving violence that APN might face, Haywood writes, include more or less open warfare with the federal government, or some subset or remnant of it, the federal government, that is. Further on, Haywood writes, at this moment I preside over what amounts to an extended, quite sizable compound, which, when complete, I like to say, accurately, will be impervious to anything but direct organized military attack, adding that it requires a group of men to make it work, what I call shooters, say 15 able-bodied and adequately trained men. This is very interesting. And now I see some other interesting connections out there. I'll see if I can find them as I'm thinking. Or maybe I have to do this now. I'm going to go back over to Blue Sky and scroll through some of the things that I posted lately, because it seems to me that I recall reposting on Blue Sky. How can I find this? I might have to look at my posts and replies here. But there was some mention of armed compounds not that long ago. And somebody was making I thought a fairly good point about it. And it was pretty random. But I think I reposted it, reskeeted it, because it was a good point about warlordism, which is rare these days. Dang, I'm going to see if I can come up with it, but I guess, I don't know, maybe I don't know. I'm not certain what happened to it. But anyway, it was basically someone else's post about having convened some conference of futurists, or at least one particular futurist, and this guy remarking on the fact that he had been asked by several extremely wealthy people at his futurism conference or something like that, that the question he was getting more often than any other from these billionaires was this: how do I, in the post-apocalyptic world, I too am building an armed compound like this wackadoodle, and I want to know, how do you keep your private army loyal to you after the apocalypse? If I retreat into my bunker and live underground for 2 years, I need people guarding the surface so that I'm not raided by bandits. It comes from watching, post-apocalyptic film. Sure, that'll tell you that that's what happens. But also it is the actual history of warlordism and feudalism. And, people are going to come and take what you have. And if there's no centralized law that can make sure that that's a bad idea from the outset, then you have to be the one doing it. But if your security depends, if your life depends on living underground post-apocalyptically, and being on the surface to defend the place is by itself dangerous, either because the atmosphere has been poisoned by nuclear war or whatever, or it's just dangerous to be exposed to the roving bandits who are out to steal what you've been hoarding. How do you, in a post-apocalyptic world, you can't depend on money or Bitcoin or anything to make your private army happy. How are you paying them such that they stay loyal to you? And if the answer is, food and shelter and basic necessities of life, that's a good answer on the surface. But I think the question they're wondering about is, well, how do I keep my armed guards from saying, why don't we just kill the warlord and take all the stuff for ourselves and have more rations and access to more guns and just take over for ourselves? And it was interesting because this futurist guy was saying, I can't believe I'm facing this question over and over again, and there is really no good answer. I'm sorry, there's been an apocalypse, so whatever. And then whoever was retweeting this thing around was saying, well, this isn't, by the way, this isn't the province of futurists to answer the question of how do you keep your feudalist army loyal to you. Yes, it's post-apocalyptic, and so that would maybe be future. It happens in the future tense, but it is a question for historians, not a question for futurists, really. And I thought that was a pretty good point. I wonder if I can dig that up and find it again. Hopeless to leave a note to myself about this, but I'll try it anyway. And let's see if I can't tie all the rest of this garbage together. Let's continue on and read about this would-be warlord. I find it very interesting that he just puts it all out there on a website and that you can buy in at a franchisee level. It's fascinating. All right. So, right, at this moment, I preside over what amounts to an extended, quite sizable compound, et cetera, et cetera. And he says 15 able-bodied and adequately trained men can defend it. It's just the question that I'm now raising is, but for how long and why? These shooters, Haywood explains, can operate my compound both defensively and administratively. Meanwhile, I have the personality and skills to lead such a group. This is, of course, stems from the shampoo days. There were 15 adequately trained shampoo guys, and in exchange for cash, but also worldwide societal organization that fell outside of my control, that made it possible for me to give them cash and for them to be satisfied that this paper or this electronic representation of paper elsewhere was enough for you to continue to work for me, because everyone else was still doing the heavy lifting of providing a society. But I'm pretty sure that translates. And post-society, you guys will still do all of my guarding because it worked for shampoo. I mean, it's a shaky theory. It really is. But he's not he's a deeper thinker than I thought most shampoo guys, I guess, were. Although they're probably geniuses at shampoo, better than I am at formulating shampoo. There's no joke being able to manufacture that much shampoo and to sell private label shampoos to others. You deserve to make some money off of that. But then to say, I wonder if I could be a warlord off of it. Well, okay, that's a fantastical leap. But again, this is the way egos work. And if you get up every morning and people are like, please take my money and give me the shampoo, and it works. And then you're like, somebody's like, I'll give you $1 billion for your shampoo company. There's a lot that you think you can accomplish. You're going to be a morning person. Quite honestly, you're just going to be one of those guys. I didn't think it would end here. To me, I'd be like, I'm going to play golf. I'm going to get a nice car, maybe. Don't buy a boat. No one gets away with a boat. It always works out poorly. There's a cardinal rule. Don't buy boats. Australia, you're really in for it if you think you're going to make out with these submarines. But you're a country. You know that you're going to have to pay for maintenance of these boats. Anyway, Haywood was one of the first on the right to try to rehabilitate the rioters who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. It seemed like his kind of guys. Shampoo guys. Just over 2 months after the incident, he praised it as an electoral justice protest, commenting that the protest was pretty awesome in every way. This is very deep. Its most precise analog in American history is the Boston Tea Party, which was illegal, and they were hiding their identities and whatever. The Guardian requested comment from Haywood via text message and email after attempting to contact him via telephone, but received no response. Laura K. Field is a political theorist and senior fellow at the Washington, D.C. based think tank, the Niskanen Center. You remember them? I do. That was where Rachel Bidikofer was working, or is working, may still be there. Anyway, this is a person, Laura Field, who has written and spoken extensively about the reactionary conservatism of the Claremont Institute and those in its milieu. That's medieval French, which is appropriate here. Anyway, in a telephone conversation, Field said that some of the Claremont Institute's leaders had taken on an apocalyptic view of America, or post-apocalyptic even, and think we're already in a situation where our society is more conflict-ridden than we were before the Civil War. as evidenced, I would say, thank you very much, by the thriving private label shampoo company and market that Haywood came out of. Obviously, he can see the future here. The writing's on the wall. Yes, today people want me to formulate private label hair care products for them. But tomorrow, end of society. It's a natural progression. In the telephone conversation... Oh, yes, right. We just read this one. Right. So Claremont Institute and their weirdos think Civil War is coming. They may be right. The shampoo is not actual evidence of it, but they may have evidence elsewhere. Their fears of unyielding technocratic tyranny mean that some in Claremont circles have been dabbling in talk of secession for years and believe they need to use whatever they might need, including paramilitaries and shampoo. They're the cleanest paramilitaries ever. And what is the scent? Your hair is fabulous. Unbelievable. Anyway, great. Haywood's ideas have seen him characterized as an extremist even by others on the far right, including the former American conservative columnist Rod Dreher, who, I guess is a guy, and who wrote last December that Haywood was seriously bat crap, wink, wink, crazy, and characterized him as writing from a Midwestern Führer bunker. Oh my goodness. So you get what's going on here. So he's building himself a Hitler bunker in the Midwest, something, shampoo. Hitler honestly probably could have used a bit more shampoo from what I've seen in the historical record. So maybe maybe that's what he was lacking. Had he had better hair care products, he might have gone further. That's maybe Haywood's theory. State and federal tax filings, however, indicate that Haywood has succeeded in attracting men to help him build a network in line with his ideas. They may not be thinking about what it's really going to be like post-apocalyptic, or probably they think they'll be taken care of post-apocalyptic situation. I don't think anybody's really thought it through all the way. But in the meantime, they get to cosplay tough guy, get some guns, do some training things, and then they think they'll be let into the bunker to survive the poisonous atmosphere post-apocalypse. But they really won't. They'll be forced to stay outside and guard the bunker, even though they'll have no way of knowing whether the person inside the bunker is even still alive. And all the food that they could be eating while they're starving in the surface is rotting beneath the surface because Haywood fell down the steps inside the bunker and broke his neck, and they don't even know it. Anyway, that's a good movie. I'm going to have to make that one. State and federal tax filings indicate he's succeeded in attracting men to build this network. Although there is no public membership list available, like they're not going to comply with that regulation. Federal and state filings from regional lodges identify their officers, surprisingly enough, along with those who initially incorporated each lodge. Okay. They're still rules followers at heart. In particular, Schuyler Cresson of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, appears to serve a key role in SACR. Idaho and Texas company records show that Cresson incorporated lodges in Boise, Coeur d'Alene, and Dallas, serves as a director of the Coeur d'Alene and Dallas lodges, and was named as the principal officer of the parent organization on its 2020 and 21 tax returns. Like other members revealed as officers in the filing, Cresson appears to be an affluent professional working as a tax accountant. He probably filed the paperwork. That's why he's in it. The Guardian emailed a request for comment from Cresson. Guess what? No response. According to tax records, Haywood has funded SACR through his Howdy Doody Good Times Foundation. I give up. Oh, why am I getting up every morning? Unbelievable. We should do this as an afternoon podcast. We need more time. There's no reason to get up early and do this on a schedule. This guy is running the world, or he's ready to take over the world as a warlord through the Howdy Doody Good Times Foundation. What? Now, all right, there's more. This foundation, for which he and his wife, Allison Murphy, she's not Allison Haywood because she's not a trad wife, right? I don't know. Or maybe she is. I love it. We're going to make America great again, back to traditional values. His wife identifies as a Murphy. Just saying. That's invalid for you, but valid for them. Well, anyway, Allison Murphy is also listed as a director. In the 2020-21 tax year, the foundation gave $30,000 to SACR, followed by $10,000 the following year, according to its 990 filings. So how do you like that? The Howdy Doody Good Times Foundation is really a front for funding a post-apocalyptic warlordism network, multi-level marketing ploy. Who would have guessed? Further funding for SACR was provided by the Claremont Institute, because they're crazy, which gave $26,248 in 2021 in one of only 2 grants the organization distributed that year, per its own IRS filings. The only person Claremont Institute is giving money to is the Howdy Doody Feudal Warlord Foundation. Unbelievable. You tell me that John Eastman's not crazy and doesn't belong in a padded room. In another indication of what appears to be a mutually supportive relationship, Haywood's foundation contributed $50,000 to the Claremont Institute in 2020 through 21. This is how they're abbreviating tax years here. It's not an abbreviation, but how do you like that? How does this work? This sort of financing sometimes is beyond me. I'm amazed how far you can get on just giving one another checks and passing them around in circles. So we've discussed this in philanthropic terms, but mostly talking about, like New York City socialite types who go to one another's fundraisers. And I'm at the head of a foundation that has, $70 million in the bank. But my job is to spend the year going to parties, handing out that $70 million to other organizations that all likewise have $70 million in the bank. And they just survive on passing the same $70 million around and around and around. I don't really know how it works. No one calls in the debts on this stuff like with Mike Lindell. And so you just do this. I mean, the Howdy Doody Foundation is giving money to Claremont Institute, and the Claremont Institute is giving money to the Howdy Doody Foundation. This is just around and around in circles, and this guy's got an armed compound, and he might murder you. And at the bottom, somewhere along the line, is shampoo. I don't understand any of this, except that they're crazy. And I guess, here's my role as a futurist. I predict that the armed men that they hire to administer the whole compound will, in the case of the actual events for which they're planning coming to pass, will just kill Haywood and eat all his food. Anyway, this is how it all winds up. The Guardian emailed the Claremont media spokesperson and I asked for a comment, and I guess they got something. David Barr, B-A-H-R, I guess, was the recipient of the email. Is he the one that talks here? On Haywood's sponsorship of SACR and his Claremont ties. Oh, no, he doesn't even say anything. We're back to the expert, Field. Ms. Field, who says, what's creepy about the local level stuff, we're finally going to get to it. What's creepy about the local level stuff is that this country has a history of local autocracy. The way they're acting undermines the rule of law. Well, yeah, they don't believe in the rule of law, and they think it's coming to an end. So there you go. Related stories, by the way. Here is one from late August of this year. Glenn Beck condemns wannabe warlord businessman despite commercial ties. How do you like that? You might be interested in why he condemns them. I would recommend that you go ahead and read it yourself, because we have other stupid things to tie together here. One, I don't know whether I'll ever find the one about the futurist who was advising billionaires how to run their warlord compounds. But, man, there's a lot of other dumb things to get to. I was holding on to something from this morning from Cory Doctorow, which I didn't think I was going to read on the air. And of course, I have no time to read it before the break, but I want to throw this out there. Why did I see this morning? There was some mention of feudalism and capitalism on Mastodon, I think, and somebody referring to something Doctorow said about capitalism. Well, what's the future of capitalism? I guess he wasn't really clear that there was a future for capitalism, not because it was going to be ultimately replaced by socialism, which is the socialists' theory, convincingly enough. But an interesting thought that he had and probably has developed very thoroughly, and I haven't read because he hides all of his links. But anyway, it was capitalism basically as a brief interlude and a transition period between two different eras of feudalism and nothing more. Which was an interesting theory to put forward, and it led to a bunch of other reading. But the fact that we were back on feudalism and warlordism was pretty amazing. And he was making a fairly convincing argument of it. Like I said, I can't fit it in now, but maybe I can give you a flavor for that, if you're interested, in the next segment. We're taking a break because that's the natural order of things, and we want to preserve that. And if we don't take the break, the apocalypse happens. The shampoo guy ends up being right, and you can't have that. Although, sometimes you just bite the bullet and say, we'll dive in to the chaos mix, as we did with the speakership, right? We don't want Kevin McCarthy to prevail, but we also definitely don't want Matt Gaetz to prevail. So shouldn't we vote to save McCarthy? And the answer is no. Full on, sell the shampoo company, go warlord. It's time for chaos. Let's do it. I guess that's what we'll do. All right. Well, at any rate, we'll see if we can't tie all of this nonsense together at some point and still have room to share, let's say more information about Clarence Thomas corruption with you, because it's Friday.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I'm having difficulty finding the reference that I found on social media the other day to the futurist story. Scott informed me that the name of the Ohio town that I was having difficulty with, I guess there's no indication of where the emphasis is, but it looks to me like he's trying to say that the town is Wapakoneta, correctly pronounced. And it seems clear that it's a sort of like a Native American extract. Is that right? The name, which is interesting too, because I guess regional accenting among Native Americans, it seems to me like Midwestern pronunciation of it, and maybe it's because it's been anglicized, maybe not, I don't know. Wapakoneta seems like on the East Coast, like old style East Coast Algonquian type language, it would be like Wapakoneta. In New Jersey, we'd probably go with Wapakoneta, like Hopatcong and the like, but Wapakoneta. All right, well, that's my best guess. There's a lot of pronunciation things and clarifications that we have to get to, really, honestly. But look at this. Let's see. Does this have to do with this? Huh. Okay. Mars Farmer, our Twitter pal. Are you on Blue Sky and Mastodon yet? Anyway, send something along from business journals about Trump and shampoo, which is of interest here. Oh, and Bobblespeak tells me that rich beyond the dreams of avarice is a line from Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. The depth of thought that went into this whole thing. I mean, I guess I'm just missing it. But thank you. That's very interesting to know, and I think somewhat revealing in terms of figuring this guy out. What's this story that Mars Farmer sends us. Former President Donald Trump says Procter & Gamble, I guess P&G shampoo is crap. Why does he say it, and does Mansfield King make it? I don't know. Is he there to say, don't buy P&G shampoo, buy, Mansfield King shampoo instead? I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's just a joke. Like the picture that they chose of him at the rally doing his boxing fists, which are way too low, to be effective. But the dancing, punching, and the weird face that he made. Ugh, Trump makes me sick. All right. Anyway, where were we? Oh, yes, right. I was going to do the Cory Doctorow thing. Is this where I started? I don't know. Now I got to go back and look and see, but there's no searching for this stuff. Ugh. Anyway, damn. This is I wasn't planning on discussing it on the air because it was just, oh no, here goes Cory Doctorow. It's going to take 7 years to catch people up to what it is he's talking about here. But he was but I thought it was an interesting concept. Capitalism is a sort of a brief interlude between feudalism and feudalism. And I went and I read that, but it led to another piece. And I'm just not sure did I mark the first piece? Yeah, I think I did. So, man, I don't know why. I can't explain how we get to this piece except to say that there was this comment about capitalism being an interlude between feudalism periods. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And I read this, and it led me to, this, I guess, his current story, which then itself links back to older discussions about this concept. And I don't know, maybe we just jump right in here. It doesn't seem to be related at the outset in that today's story here that he's got here. The internet, he writes, the internet is not a link dump truck. This is an inside joke of sorts, but this is his Friday link dump, like we do. Reading all the stories that were well, it's not immediately relevant, but it is sort of background information. I'm going to save it for a Friday. And let's see. I mean, does it matter that he starts out by complaining about about mosquitoes? I got to give you what he says, right? The second decade of the 21st century is truly a bounteous time. My backyard has produced a bumper crop of an invasive species of mosquito. I mean, I've read about people complaining about this. It is genuinely innovative. Rather than confining itself to biting in the dusk and dawn golden hours, these stinging clouds of flying vampires bite at every hour that God sends. And here is a link to the Magnate Substack about these crazy new mosquitoes, which I assume people are blaming on climate change, and they may even be right. Now, here in the twilight of capitalism's planet-devouring half-century orgy of wanton destruction, there's more news every day than I can possibly write a full blog post about every day, and as with many weeks, I have arrived at Saturday. I don't even know when the date on this thing. Oh, this is September 30th. So last Saturday, he arrived at Saturday with a substantial backlog of links that didn't fit into the week's, hey, look at this, link dumps. Same thing as my show, essentially. Thus, the 8th installment of my ongoing semi-regular series of Saturday link dumps. Here it is. And he begins with this story, though. This week, the miscellany begins with the first hesitant signs of an emerging post-neoliberal order. The FTC, Federal Trade Commission, under the direction of the force of nature that is Lina Khan, has brought its long-awaited antitrust case against Amazon. All news by itself, right? This isn't how I planned on landing on it, but it is. I am very excited about this, he says. Disoriented even. When was the last time you greeted every day with a warm feeling because high officials in the U.S. government were working for the betterment of every person in the land? Has been a while, hasn't it? It's enough to make one giddy. Plus, the New York Times let me, Cory Doctorow, call Amazon the apex predator of our platform era. Now that it's in the paper of record, it's official, and he shows you his piece about that one. Now, lefties have been predicting capitalism's imminent demise since the Communist Manifesto, but any I don't know what this is. Is this also a inside joke? I don't read enough Cory Doctorow to know. Is this supposed to be his inside joke of saying any fool knows that? Because it says any F-U-L-E, next word K-N-O. Any fool know? Is that what this is supposed to be? I don't know. You tell me. But that it fits in context, right? Any fool know that the capitalist word for crisis also translates as opportunity. Like the bedbugs that mutated to thrive in clouds of post-war DDT, capitalism has adapted to each crisis, emerging in a new, more virulent form. And links to a story about that, literally about bedbugs in Paris, it seems. But anything that can't go on forever will eventually stop. That's, he quotes as Stein's law. Perhaps our mistake was in waiting for capitalism to give way to socialism rather than serving as a transitional phase between feudalism and feudalism. What's he talking about here? What's the difference between feudalism and capitalism? He offers this. According to Yanis Varoufakis, it comes down to whether we value rents, that is, income that you get from owning things, over profits, that being income you get from doing things. And there's a link explaining his views on that. That's not what I was reading. By that metric, the FTC's case against Amazon is really a case against feudalism. What? Right, well, hold on. Through predatory pricing and acquisitions, we all know about this, right? Amazon has turned itself into a choke point that every merchant, writer, and publisher has to pass through in order to reach their customers. Amazon charges a fortune to traverse that choke point. Estimates range from 45 to 51% of gross revenues, and then forces sellers to raise their prices everywhere else when they hike their Amazon prices so that they can afford Amazon's tolls. It is an economy-wide hidden tax. And a convincing explainer linked here, thebignewsletter.com, writing the piece, the FTC sues to break up Amazon over, I don't know what, over what? Let's take a look at what the rest of it's over the economy-wide hidden tax. That's interesting. Matt Stoller is the author of that piece, in case you found that to be a surprise. I didn't think we would be calling his name today, but there you have it. Now, back to the bigger point. Now, feudalism isn't a straightforward proposition. Okay, like, are you sure you mean feudalism, he writes. Maybe you mean manorialism. They're easy to mix up, and he sends you to a link from Locus magazine, I guess, in which Cory defines neo-feudalism and the digital manor, and I guess defining his idea of the difference between manorialism and feudalism, which might not necessarily be directly relevant here, but maybe we'll find out that Charles Haywood really thinks he's being a neo-feudalist, but he's a neo-manorialist. I'm not sure if that matters, but I might read over the weekend, and maybe you will too. Plus, he then continues, much of what we know about the Dark Ages, like, what do we know about feudalism? Do we have a good idea of what it was really like? I don't know, because he explains, much of what we know about the Dark Ages came from grifter doofuses like Voltaire. A man who was capable of dismissing the 800-year Holy Roman Empire with a single quip. You know it, right? Neither Holy Roman nor an empire. But the reality is a lot more complicated, gnarly, and interesting. Now, I went, I think, at that point and read about the neo-feudalism over in Locus Mag, which is a link to a piece from January of 2021. Like, okay, well, tell me, what is the difference between feudalism and manorialism? And I don't think we ever got to it, or I never made it to that part of the article, but the rest of the article itself was fascinating. And that's where I derailed from all of this. But there's much more if you want to read more about the deeper meaning of the FTC's case against Amazon, which by itself is in fact quite interesting. But because I have to tie together a totally different element, warlordism, I now have to derail and go over to that Locus Mag piece from 2021 in which Doctorow again writes, setting the scene. As I write this in mid-November of 2020, I don't really want to go back to November of 2020, but there we are. There's quite a stir over, the insurrection being led at the time by Trump. But the stir he was paying attention to, because he's a guy with thick-rimmed glasses, is the new version of Apple's Mac OS. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that either. But you know, shampoo is the basis of the other guy's post-apocalyptic revolutionary warlordism. So why can't Apple's Mac OS be one? It was, of course, the operating system that it was running on its laptops, Mac laptops. For more than a year, Apple has engaged in a covert global surveillance of its users through its operating system. This is the kind of thing that Doctorow usually warns us about, right? Which automatically sent information about which apps you were running to Apple, and which gave Apple a remote veto over whether that program would launch when you double-clicked it. Oh, most Apple customers don't know about this, but the kind of Apple user who does know about it is also likely to be the kind of security-conscious person who doesn't like it and even takes steps to block it. That seems right. A confluence of events has tipped this obscure feature into global notoriety. First, Apple suffered an outage in the servers that received this information and okayed the launch of its customers' programs, meaning that Mac OS users couldn't run the programs they relied on to do their work. You thought you owned your computer, but you don't. And that's actually a point made later in this piece. To make things worse, the outage coincided with the release of Big Sur, the latest version of Mac OS, which locks out the aftermarket additions that privacy and security conscious Apple customers use to block Apple's OS level surveillance. In other words, at the very same moment that millions of Apple device owners were discovering why they might want to switch off this hidden feature, Apple made it all but impossible to do so. Now, all this was written up in Your Computer Isn't Yours, which is linked here. An excellent article, not by Cory Doctorow, but by Jeffrey Paul, a Berlin-based technologist. Paul makes the point that the latest Apple hardware will only run the new, more surveillant version of Mac OS. So, barring a change in Apple's corporate philosophy, good luck, this is the future of Mac OS. Paul also name-checked me, meaning Cory Doctorow, at the start of his essay, which means that I got a look at it early and have had occasion to follow along with the commentary it provoked. Why would Apple bother doing this spying? My best guess, and the most charitable explanation, is that Apple is surveilling the whole ecosystem of Mac OS devices so that it can discover malicious software early. And it has arrogated the ability to block certain programs from running on its customers' computers in order to protect them from bad software. Well, that actually sounds good, right? In a world of rampant and ghastly cybersecurity failures, these are both highly desirable features. But, as Paul points out, I swear to God, this gets back to stuff we were talking about earlier. Apple has now arrogated to itself the power to know, with a reasonable degree of granularity, which programs its customers are using, and to decide whether customers should be permitted to do so. Nothing in this surveillance system prevents it from being used against legitimate software. Nothing prevents it from being used to extract surveillance data about Apple customers, for example, to determine where you are or whether there is anyone else there with you running a Mac. The only thing that stops Apple from blocking you from running legitimate apps or from gathering information about your movements and social activities is its goodwill and good judgment, and therein lies the problem. All right, bad for computer security, right? But how do we get back to the shampoo fascist? The security researcher and Hugo Award nominee Bruce Schneier has a name for this arrangement. Are you ready? He calls it feudal security. Huh. Why? Well, here in the 21st century, we are beset by all manner of digital bandits. From identity thieves to stalkers to corporate and government spies to harassers. There is no way for us to defend ourselves. Even skilled technologists who administer their own networked services are no match for the bandits. To keep bandits out, you have to be perfect and perfectly vigilant and never make a single mistake. For the bandits to get you, they need merely find a single mistake that you've made. It doesn't sound good, right? The odds are bad. To be safe, ready for this? Ready for their brain to explode? Or maybe you already know this. Some of you are technologists yourself and maybe you already read this. Or you're just Cory Doctorow fans. To be safe, then, you have to ally yourself with a warlord. That sounds like it calls for dramatic music. A warlord? What do you mean? Who are these warlords? Shampoo guy? Pillow guy? Other guys that we don't know about? Although these are all head-related products. I wonder if that has anything to do with it. No, I can think of nothing. Who are the warlords with which you must ally yourself? That's crazy. I'm not allying myself with a warlord. Oh, yes, you are. Ready? Who are the warlords? Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and a few others. Ready? Have built massive fortresses bristling with defenses, whose parapets are stalked by the most ferocious cyber mercenaries money can buy, and they will defend you from every attacker, except for their employers. If the warlord turns on you, you're defenseless. We see this dynamic playing out with all of our modern warlords. Google is tweaking Chrome, its dominant browser, to block commercial surveillance. But not Google's own commercial surveillance. Google will do its level best to block scumbag marketers from tracking you on the web. You want that, right? But if a marketer pays Google and convinces Google's gatekeepers that it's not a scumbag, either because it isn't or by virtue of paying or whatever, Google will allow them to spy on you. If you don't mind being spied on by Google, and if you trust Google to decide who's a scumbag and who isn't, this is great. But if you and Google disagree on what constitutes scumbaggery, you will lose, thanks in part to other changes to Chrome that make it much harder to block the ads that Chrome lets through. Still, it doesn't seem quite so bad as, just outright murder and stuff, right? Over in Facebook land, this dynamic is a little easier to see. After the Cambridge Analytica scandal, Facebook tightened up who could buy Facebook's surveillance data about you and what they could do with it. Then, in the run-up to the 2020 U.S. election, Facebook went further, instituting policies intended to prevent paid political disinformation campaigns at a critical juncture. But Facebook isn't doing a very good job of defending its users from the bandits. It's a bad or possibly inattentive or indifferent or overstretched warlord, though. We know this thanks to Ad Observer and the Ad Observatory, a pair of tools from NYU's engineering school. Ad Observer is a browser plugin that Facebook users run. Whenever they encounter an ad, Ad Observer makes a copy of it and sends it to the Ad Observatory, an open repository of Facebook ads. Researchers and accountability journalists use Ad Observatory to document all the ways that Facebook is failing to enforce its own policies. In October, Facebook sent a legal threat to NYU, demanding that Ad Observer and Ad Observatory shut down. Facebook says that it is doing its duties as an honest warlord here, because Ad Observer could, but doesn't, violate its users' privacy. As the local warlord, Facebook has a duty to prevent anyone from supplying the people inside its fortress with tools that could expose those under its protection to risk, right? I mean, that's the job of the warlord. I'm protecting you from somebody who could compromise you with the information it's collecting from you. Even though they say they're good people, maybe they're not. Maybe they're scumbags. We're going to prevent this. Now back to Apple. In 2017, Apple removed all effective privacy tools from the Chinese version of the iPhone and iPad App Store at the behest of the Chinese government. The Chinese government wanted to spy on Apple customers in China, because that's what they do. And so it ordered Apple to facilitate this surveillance. Despite mounting evidence that the Chinese state was using concentration camps, punitive rape, coerced sterilizations, and forced labor in its ethnic cleansing program in the Xinjiang province, pardon my pronunciation, but you know where we're talking about, Apple went along with the order, exposing vulnerable populations to state surveillance that could lead to gross human rights abuses. The order to compromise its customers' privacy was a lawful one. Apple has to follow Chinese laws because it has both a commercial presence in China, the subsidiary arm that sells iPhones, ads, apps, and other products and services in China, and because it relies on Chinese manufacturing to make its products. If Apple chose not to comply with the Chinese order, it would either have to risk fines against its Chinese subsidiary and possibly criminal proceedings against its Chinese staff, or pull out of China and risk having its digital services blocked by China's Great Firewall, wink wink, and its Chinese manufacturing subcontractors could be ordered to sever their relations with Apple. In other words, the cost of non-compliance with the order is high, so high that Apple decided that putting its customers at risk was an acceptable alternative. Therein lies the problem with trusting warlords to keep you safe. They have priorities that aren't your priorities, and when there's a life or death crisis that requires them to choose between your survival and their own, they will throw you to the bandits. But that's not the end of the story. Of course, warlords will only protect us to the extent that doing so doesn't risk their own extinction. Is there any way that warlords can reduce the likelihood that bandits will achieve the leverage they need to convince them to throw us over the wall and be torn to pieces? There most assuredly is. And that's the most frustrating part of the whole business of Apple's app surveillance and cutoff program. The mere existence of such a kill switch is a moral hazard. If you can cut off your users' privacy or their tools that improve competition or undo lock-in, then you invite others to demand that these tools be used to their advantage. The fact that Apple devices are designed to prevent users from overriding the company's veto over their computing makes it inevitable that some government will demand that this veto be exercised in their favor. After all, the Chinese government wasn't the first state to demand that Apple expose its customers to surveillance. That was the Obama administration, which sought a backdoor for Apple's devices in order to investigate the San Bernardino terrorist attack. Oh, yeah. That is another way of looking at that, isn't it? Apple resisted the U.S. government's demands, something it was able to do because the U.S. Constitution constrained the government's ability to compel action. China, or maybe a Trump administration, I would add, faces no such constraint. But even if Apple exited the Chinese market and repatriated its manufacturing to countries with strong rule of law protections for human rights, the kill switch would still be there and present a serious risk. Maybe Tim Cook is a good egg who'll defend the company's customers from state surveillance and not abuse Apple's kill switches to shut down competition. But what about all the CEOs that come after Cook? Schneier calls this feudal security. But as the medievalist Stephen Morillo wrote to me, the correct term for this is probably, ready, here we get back to the original intent, manorial security. While feudalism was based on land grants to aristocrats who promised armed soldiers in return, manorialism referred to a system in which an elite owner or an elite owned all the property and the rest of the world had to work on that property on terms that the local lord set. So, I mean, it's, I guess, similar. It's the same system, but feudalism, I guess, describes the transaction as between landowners and the crown, and manorialism described the relationship as between landowners and the serfdom, I suppose. After all, the thing that gives tech companies the power to overrule your choices on your computers and devices is that they're not really yours. Thanks to onerous licensing terms and bizarre retrofits to copyright and patent law, the only entities who can truly be said to own anything are aristocratic corporations who may have to capitulate to the king, but owe no fealty to us, the peasants. That's how Facebook can roll out a new Oculus VR headset that is tied to your Facebook account. If you resign from or get kicked off of Facebook, your VR headset returns to a brick. It's not really yours. Rather, you are a tenant of Facebook's, which has graciously extended the use of its property to you for the low price of $400. Feudalism was also based on manorialism, but it was tied to hereditary titles. You couldn't aspire to become a lord of the manor unless you were to the manor born. That's another interesting aspect of it. Yes, forgot about that. In the early tech bubbles, the PC years, the dot-com boom, there was a real manorialist energy. The sense that two guys, in a garage could seize a manor from one of the great hereditary titled lines, as Microsoft did to IBM. But lurking in the heart of all those mercantilists was a secret aristocrat, someone whose commitment to overturning the old order was highly selective and applied only to themselves. Having attained walled manors of their own, these merchant warlords are determined to ensure that no one does to them what they did to their toppled forebears. And I guess that brings us back to the thing that I couldn't find, as well as bringing us to the end of the show, and late at that, the idea of how do you keep your armed soldiers loyal to you when the crap hits the fan. And no, there's no real answer to that one, but I don't even know whether they actually address this in this article. It's fantastic. It goes on for some length at that. It has nothing to do with the day's news, and I'm sorry about that. West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy comes up next, and we'll fill you in on what's been happening, I think more immediately. But there's probably some mind-blowing stuff on the tab for today, the menu for today. And in fact, why don't we move over to that? Because it's so late, we owe him an explanation of what's going on. Well, let's see. First up, Trump's lawyers say that Trump's sharing of highly classified nuke sub-secrets on the patio of Mar-a-Lago with an Australian billionaire lacks proper context. Oh, good. Let's get to that. On the rest of the menu, battleground state Republicans are refusing campaign donations from murdery Trader Green. I changed her name on this one. That's cool. Oklahoma has, executed more people per capita than any other state in the U.S., but some Republican lawmakers want to impose a moratorium. Republicans do. Until more safeguards can be put in place. The U.S. government has agreed to help restore a sacred Native American site on the slopes of Oregon's Mount Hood that was destroyed by highway construction. That's some good news. And then internationally, let's see, developed countries pledging $9.3 billion at a conference held in the German city of Bonn. And I'll tell you why in just a minute.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Yes, $9.3 billion pledged. We'll need more than that, of course, but pledged at the German city of Bonn to help poor nations tackle climate change. And a special unit of German police and customs officials raided several properties of an EU-sanctioned Russian national in the southern state of Bavaria. Isn't that always where trouble arises in Germany? Stay tuned. We'll see you next week.